Welcome back to the Profit Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. So glad to have you here for our final episode of 2024. Hope it's been a great year for you, and we're going to have a chance to celebrate wins in just a moment, but thank you for taking time out of your busy December to join us. We're talking about maybe one of the most important things that I feel like we could talk about as we wrap up the year, and that is team performance, data-driven team performance, how to coach your team to create undeniable value with the PM operations standards. And just as we start out here, I want to just thank you for being part of the Profit Power Hour series over the year. It's always fun to do these events and bring content when actually people show up. So we really appreciate that. And I'm excited about today's topic in particular. But before we dive into all of that, let's get the chat discussion going just a little bit. Open up your chat panel and make sure you're chatting with everyone. And tell us, what is your biggest win from 2024? So make sure you've got the can chat with everyone. Chapin's biggest win is delegation. I love it. Kelli, how about you? Biggest win for 2024 so far?
I have to go with my grandbaby. She was born 2 weeks ago, little Layla, and we're just totally smitten.
That is so awesome. Congratulations. What a great way to end the year. Super happy for you. Everybody I talk to who has a grandbaby gives me the exact same reason why it's so awesome to be a grandparent, which is that you can have them when you want to have them and not take care of them when you don't want to take care of them. So you'll have to confirm or deny that story as the weeks go on here. Patty, getting expenses under control. Way to go. And yeah, just jump into chat. What is your biggest win of 2024? Marlene, keeping tenants and owners happy. Harry, improving DLAR. Way to go, Harry. Karen, fine-tuning our metrics. Talking my language, Karen. Ryan, changing pricing structure to add fees and other streams of revenue. I'm so glad to hear that's been successful. Adam, how about you? Biggest win of 2024?
Personal win, I bought my dream car. Professional win, I met 90% of my staff in person. I shook their hands. That's hard because over half of our staff is overseas now.
That is great. That is so great. So cool story on this. I got a Slack message and it was one of our Nicaraguan team members in Nicaragua hanging out with Adam Willis. I'm like, what is going on here? Why is our employee hanging out with Adam? Turns out our employee's sister works for Nestwell, and Adam was kind enough to invite our team member to be part of their party. So Adam, thank you for extending the love there in the PM family. Brad, how about you? Biggest win for 2024?
Personal win, we had our fourth child, healthy little boy, 10 weeks ago. And professional win, after two failed attempts of successful BDM hiring transition, we got a great BDM and they are just completing their 10th month with us. And I also hired earlier this year an operations manager for our HOA division. So I have been able to separate myself from a lot of that, which many of you have put in the chat. It's a big deal, and I could not agree more. It's a great feeling to be moving away from that rather than digging deeper.
That is awesome. Great wins, Brad. So happy for you as well with a baby. That's fantastic. All right, folks, thanks for joining in and being part of the conversation. So much to be grateful for. God is good to us, and hope you have some time over the next few weeks to celebrate that at the end of the year. All right, joining us today, you already heard from them, an esteemed panel of experts in this industry. Kelli Segretto, owner at K Segretto Consulting. Brad Randall, owner and operator, Welch Randall Real Estate, and Adam Willis, president of Nestwell Property Management. Thank you guys for being part of the conversation today. And me, chief strategy officer here at Profit Coach, author of the NARPM Accounting Standards. And I got to add one new title, which this isn't like an official title, but I just thought it was cool to add, author of the PM Operations Standards as of this year. And The thing I'm grateful for is obviously this crew. And one of my blessings in 2024 was finding out that number 5 is on the way in May. So, all right, let's dive in. And if you guys have questions as we roll along here today, be sure and dump those into the Q&A box, which is a little different than the chat box. Just helps us track questions, and panelists help with those questions as we go along here. We want to make this content about you, so be sure and drop those questions in. And as always, we are here to wrap up the year to help you with a transformation of mindset that's going to help you move from financial and operational fog to clarity, and ultimately from gut-based decision-making, gut-based performance management to data-driven, undeniable value creation. That is our new thing. We want to help move this industry from alleged junk fees to undeniable value creation with the radically clarifying standard performance in the PM operation standards. And that's what we believe the future of this industry is. And this is what we believe will help you and all of us move from wherever you are today to benchmark success. And when we were talking about operations, we didn't really even know what benchmark success is. Now we are actually clarifying what that standard of success looks like through the PM operation. So, little energy in the house. Can I get some drum roll? Are you guys ready to close out 2024? Here we go. Data-driven team performance. I want to start out with a poll and get some audience feedback here. What is your biggest challenge in improving team performance? Go ahead and join the conversation here. Let's get some insight for our panelists so we can tailor the content to you as best as possible. What is your biggest challenge in improving team performance? Hiring team members who actually want to improve, knowing how to define success for the team, measuring and tracking actual performance, having productive coaching conversations, and effectively rewarding and incentivizing performance. All right, let's dive in here with a little feedback. And I'm going to start with you, Kelli. Just at a high level, as we talk about data-driven team performance management, maybe one of the questions that comes up here is, well, hey, why does using data in team performance conversations even matter? You've run PM operations yourself. You now consult with a lot of PMs. When it comes to improving team performance, why are data conversations important?
Yeah, data gives everyone a shared language for performance. It reduces that defensiveness, it drives continuous improvement. When you're working from the same scoreboard, you can focus on those actionable outcomes. And so being able to collaborate with your team and pull in that data-driven metrics into your team performance conversations, you're able to really start from the same place and row in the same direction towards the same goals, the same outcomes. That's how you drive success in your business.
I love that. And don't miss what she just said. You're working from the same scoreboard. I think one of the things that happens in managing team performance is that we just assume that we all have the same definition of what success looks like. Like, of course, well, we just, it's just, we just provide a good experience. And yet oftentimes I think if we peel back the layers of the onion, there can be a lot of ambiguity in terms of different expectations around what success looks like. So great point there, Kelli. Thoughts on this, Brad, just from your experience, how does using data help team performance conversations?
Yeah, I think that data helps give meat to the narrative that you're trying to provide to investors and owners. So when you're looking to create an experience for an investor and owner, and even within your team, if it's just your opinion or your feelings, your gut impressions of what's happening, that is really not enough for a savvy owner or an investor or even your team to really buy into. But where you have benchmarks, not only with your own company, but as an industry as a whole, which is something that this report has been so helpful with, it gives you a much better approach to go with. And I just think data really does drive the story better than an emotional or other connection could.
That's great. Thoughts, Adam?
Yeah, definitely there's potential hazards by operating strictly off of feeling. And oftentimes our feelings are true, but can be misleading. Back to Kelly's point is having a scoreboard. Part of our job as leadership, as leaders in our company is defining, measuring, rewarding success. That's been talked about multiple times. But part of our role is also, defining the rules of the game. And so you might have a scoreboard, but it's like, what are these rules? What are these operating parameters that I can operate within in order to be successful, in order to win? Because I think every person who, comes in and works every day and trades their time for money wants to be a winner. But if they're running their own plays, if they're unsure of which direction the ball is going, that is a major problem. Because everyone's showing up, they're giving their best, but if it's not aligned with corporate goals, overarching goals, departmental goals, you are rudderless. You're just all rowing the different direction.
Love that. It's not just having data, it's having the right data set, because if you have sort of a partial data set, or you're looking at one angle in terms of your measurables, it's possible for people to exercise aberrant behavior to achieve short-term outcomes that have negative ramifications in other areas and sectors of the business. You guys are all smiling, knowing smiles. Probably done that once or twice before, put out a metric, y'all roll hard to that metric, and then before you know it, there's another metric that's not looking so hot. So we're going to talk about how to have that balanced model of team performance. Looking at the poll results here, number one, the number one point of feedback here in terms of the biggest challenge is measuring and tracking actual performance. That's really interesting. Tied for second is hiring team members who actually want to improve, having productive coaching conversations. And then tied for third is knowing how to define success and effectively rewarding and incentivizing performance. Great feedback, some shared pain points there. We're going to be talking about all of these things today. So stay with us here as we dive in. A little bit about the agenda. I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of the PM Operations Standards. Some of you were probably on our PM Ops Summit last month. If you haven't seen that, we got some great feedback on that. Be sure and check out the recording of that. We sent that out last month. But I'm just going to do a super overview of that so we have shared context for today. We're going to talk about why data matters in performance conversations, covered that already a little bit, how to quantify success with the PM Operations Standards, how to coach your team using data, and mechanics of measuring and tracking performance, and then lastly, best practices for rewarding performance. So let's dive in, talk a little bit about the PM Operations Standards. We saw a problem in the industry, which is really, how do you know if you're doing a good job as a company? How does your team know if they're doing a good job? And we really haven't had a great answer to that question in the operations portion of our business. And so we asked the question, what if you could measure client experience at the process level, and then use that data to outperform your competition and create undeniable value for your clients? And specifically relative to today's conversation, what if you could what if you could measure the output of each team member so that you can then coach them into top performers? And certainly we care about the overall performance of our company for sure. But one of the things that excites me most about the PM Operations Standards is the way that it can help improve the performance and ultimately help our team members thrive. At Profit Coach, we believe that people are made in God's image. They have value and worth. And so we have a mission of helping them become and achieve more than they thought possible. That's what we want for this industry. And we believe that the PM Operations Standards are a really powerful way of helping clarify what success looks like and giving people a track for success. And so if you don't yet have access to the PM Operations Standards, I want to encourage you to just head over to pmopsstandards.com and you can download your copy there. I'm also going to put the link for that URL right in chat. So you can head over to pmopsstandards.com and download your copy of the PM Operations Standards and follow along with us as we go through this. But ultimately, we're trying to provide a standard of what it means to be doing a good job and provide a common language of comparison where we can compare performance between companies and also compare performance between team members and help everybody level up. So quick overview of the framework. so that you have context as Kelli and Brad and Adam are talking about aspects of the ops standards today. You have this context. We really looked at 4 aspects of operations: the process that we're trying to improve, the milestones inside of that process, the metrics that are then defined by those milestones, and the targets that the industry is striving towards on those metrics. We looked at 8 process, 61 milestones in those processes, defined about 79 metrics and about 57 targets. I'll give you an example of this: the maintenance request process. 2 key milestones: maintenance request submitted, work completed. Clarity on those milestones helps us have a common definition of probably the most important metric in maintenance, that is speed to repair. And then based off of industry feedback, we define targets for that. The median target for speed to repair is 6 days. Top 25% of people are targeting 3 days. And so what that looks like, and I think this is really important as it pertains to today's conversation, is looking at each process in terms of key events, the key milestones that are either constraints in the process that can hold back the team, or key value creation moments where the team can really shine in the value that they create to owners and residents. And what we really think is that these milestone maps and the PM operation standards do for each of these processes create sort of this roadmap of success. What does a successful maintenance request timeline and process look like? And this is what we believe goes a long way toward establishing that definition of success and giving a baseline for actually coaching our teams to top performance. And then obviously tracking the metrics sort of at a summary level off of those processes, and those are also summarized in the appendixes in the PM operations standards. So that's all I want to say about that. Let me just give an example. One of the things that came out is one of my favorite examples of conversations. Kelli knows we've had some very spirited debates about this, but one of the things that we looked at was days without revenue. And this is what we believe is a much more meaningful version of days vacant. This is what owners care about. And this is something that we can coach our team towards in terms of creating undeniable value for our owners. And one of the things we looked at is the difference in terms of what people are targeting based on whether or not they list a unit before or after the turn is complete. And so for those who do not list the unit before the turn is complete, wait till afterwards, their target days without revenue is 42 days. Whereas the people who are listing their units before the turn is complete, their target days without revenue is 26 days. Now, that 16-day differential for a company with a 500 unit portfolio, average rent of $1,600, turning 33% of units every year, that is a revenue differential of $139,000. Now, you may have already heard for owners across the company, and you may have already heard me give this illustration, but today I want you to think through that through the lens of having a meaningful conversation with your team. This is why we're shooting for optimizing days without revenue. Here's the impact to our owners. This is how we can provide incredible value as a company. All right, so that's context. Going to go back to the panel now. And I just want to start with you again, Kelli. Can you just talk a little bit from your perspective on the value of using the metrics and targets in the PM operations standards to actually quantify success and create a common goal for the team? What are your learnings on this so far as you've been working through this with clients?
Yeah, metrics and targets provide clear definitions of success and creates alignment across your team. So the PM Ops standard serves as a benchmark for what great looks like for your team, which enables everyone to measure progress consistently. If you don't set goals in your organization, you're never going to reach the level of success that you could have if you knew what you were shooting for. In property management, there are so many moving parts. So it's important to get all of your team members, again, rowing in that same direction. And the only way to do that is with those common goals.
Kelli, what does this look like? Let's break this down a little bit. So, people are, they've got the PM operation standards open in front of them. You do all the time. You just told me in the green room. There it is. All right. And so like in terms of you walk into an organization and how are you now using this to evaluate team performance and help the clients you're working with actually define success? Like, what is the gap you're seeing that this helps people close?
One of the biggest problems that we have is being able to pull the right data. So there are some challenges there. And I know a lot of you who are watching this have felt that challenge in being able to pull the right data. But first, we start with really defining what the issues are in the organization and finding out, we'll look at the last 90 days, the last 120 days, whatever period of time we want to look at for that organization and see what their metrics consistently have been. And we'll look at the benchmarks and be able to compare against where we think they should be versus where they currently are. And that's where we'll then choose as our areas of focus for the organization to set those goals to be able to then start working towards improvement in those areas. Because I find that those are the lowest hanging fruit. If it actually is defined by where your issues are in your organization, and that's where you focus instead of trying to be too broad and too big and do everything at once, then you can start building traction. You get team buy-in, you get the excitement of everybody kind of working together towards those shared goals.
So I'm going to go with you just a little bit longer on this. So we have this key metrics cheat sheet here. And what are you seeing are some of the common metrics that are coming up in your conversations with people at a high level? And then how are you zooming in? Are you like, all right, guys, hey, we need to tackle turnover speed, make ready speed, days without revenue, and then like specifically identifying specific milestones? Like what is that looking like in terms of how you get to that standard of success? And maybe, I'll pause there.
Yeah, this kind of ties into Henry's question in the Q&A as well. So I'll try to loop that in here too, Henry. With what we're looking at, we'll give that days without revenue as a great example because that's one that we look at all of the time. I find that is a really great starting point for a lot of teams because from days of revenue, we can then go into turnover speed. We can look at application qualification speed. We can look at how long it's taking to get owner responses. We can look at our days on market time and really find where those levers are to where we can then tie individual team members' performance back into this to be able to say, okay, I need the leasing manager to better own this days on market number so that we can find traction and shorten that overall days without revenue. Or, looking at different policies like pre-leasing and those types of things, which we already know my opinions on.
Yeah. I love that. And I think this is a big thing here, which is you take a number like days without revenue, okay? And you have, the median target of 35 here. And then the cool thing about this is you can break that down and say, all right, well, that's made up of two pieces, is your turnover speed, and then your rent ready to revenue speed. You can see how those numbers add up there. 14 plus 21 equals 35. And then from a team conversation perspective, and this is kind of a big thing for me. I really encourage the people who are listening today to engage with the team at this level, to where you can go and say, all right, now let's look at the turnover process. Let's look at the make ready process. If we're going to hit 15 days or 14 days, this is what that timeline needs to look like. Are we all on board that this represents the map or the roadmap to success? And I envision that you're going to have conversations that are like, wow, gee, I didn't know that, we were targeting 1 day to move out assessment, or 2 days to have the scope defined, or, 4 days, or no, it's not reasonable to get owner approval and funds received within 2 days, and so now we can start having conversations of, okay, as a team, like if this is success, how can we work together to change the process, to define policies or redefine policies, as you mentioned, in order to achieve this? Brad, your thoughts on how to use what you're seeing. You were on the council with the PM operations standards. How is this factoring into this whole question of quantifying measurable success for your team?
Yeah, so I loved being on the council, but when we got back from Dallas and I had my book, I went into a team meeting and our maintenance coordinator, our maintenance director immediately took it and she started flipping through it. And what I noticed is she found 5 or 6 metrics that she said, these are mine. And I loved that she went that direction because one of the things that Kelli brought up, I know Adam is a huge believer in this, is if you have a process or a metric, someone has to own it on your team.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be you owning all of these processes. And that's a mistake I've fallen into where I think, well, I'm the company owner. Ultimately, the buck stops with me. But that is not how a team is actually built. So if you have these various metrics and you have someone on your team that owns it, then that's where you can go through and say, okay, if you're owning the turnover process, then we have to look at 3 different benchmarks. So in the PM Ops standard, you have the median, the top 25%, and the third that is not included on this is your company standard.
Yeah.
Now, your company standard may be the top 25%, but for me, the median is what we share with potential owners and investors. That's where we say, look, what you could expect on this is this. The top 25% is what the top performers in your market are doing. And your company standard may be the same as the top 25%, but that's where I think the team member comes to you and says, I think I want to do it in this amount of time, or I can do it in this days. And when this amount of days, and when that type of ownership starts to happen, this is where transformation changes. And I'm not saying we're arrived there. I'm saying this.
Come on, Brad. It's been 4 weeks. You haven't gotten there yet?
But the conversations that have come, the conversations that have been,
he's up all night.
Yeah, totally. It's been so much more organic because of the data that's out there.
Yeah. I love that.
That also plays into having the right people in your team to have those type of people who are willing to take the ownership and get excited about the numbers. That's when you hit that sweet spot of knowing you have the right people in the right seat.
Totally. And just hear what he said. Like, he came home, his team member grabbed the book and said, "These are mine." All right. Now that's cultural right there. And so I think one of the takeaways here is you do have to have a team, or you need to develop a team and culture that wants to run this way. And so make sure that if you are trying to shift your organization from being a gut-based feeling organization to a data-driven organization, you're aware that you might have to work through a cultural shift, and some people might make the trip, some people might not make the trip. But getting to the point where you bring the data home and they say, "This is mine," is awesome. I also think that the EOS framework overlays really well with what Brad just described, because it helps you put that in writing. Adam, it seems like you want to jump in on that.
No, that was more like, I second that. If you feel like you are the only person on your team that will own the numbers or own the metrics, you will burn out or you will not be able to scale, period. But you can ask yourself, if not me, then who? And hopefully you have A players who are willing to step up to the plate and saying, I got these, I have them. Or you can also train, coach, and counsel, develop those people and incentivize them to own those outcomes. And then that would be rewarding success.
Yeah. To what these guys are saying, I did just upload a PMOS worksheet in chat, which is where you can look at the most important metrics that we're seeing in some top categories like maintenance and turnovers, marketing renewals, and communications and onboarding. You can sit down. It's fillable, guys. So download this, print it out, or get on a Zoom call with your remote team and fill these numbers in, and have your team fill them in and say, what do we think we can accomplish on these as a team? Okay, let's go ahead and just dive into the whole conversation of actually coaching people. And I want to talk about the mechanics of this because, it's possible to use data as sort of this, whipping thing that you beat people over the head with, as an uplifting experience, which I'm sure is the latter is all what we think we want, but perhaps our methodology doesn't always align with that. So, um, Adam, just kind of give us your take right now. I just know, even from looking at your feedback on the coaching call we're going to have later today, you're talking about what you guys are doing to coach and praise your team members. How are you coaching your team to improve performance using data?
Yeah, there's the carrot and the stick mentality, right? The stick mentality usually elicits a temporary response, an uptick in performance, but it's not very long lasting. It's the flogging never really works, and that's not naturally who I am. And so we lean way more into the carrot. And so when someone is on track with their numbers, we celebrate them. We praise them publicly. We coach them privately. And we're giving them lots of high fives, shout outs on our Slack channel or Google channel. We actually have a performance NPS platform that we use that governs a lot of this. And so we're praising publicly. When something is off track, we define who it is, or the departmental, if it's a departmental issue, we're pulling them aside, and we're coaching them privately as a department. We use the coaching habit as kind of a framework. Our entire company, or anyone who's a leader, has read the book, The Coaching Habit. And we meet with them bi-monthly. So if I can see something, if I'm looking at my scorecard, I can see what's on track, off track, or at risk. If someone's individual contribution is off track, I am putting that on my one-on-one, and I meet with them monthly. I say, hey, we're going to address this issue, and we're going to say, hey, why are we at risk? Why are we off track? And engage with them and find out why. And my job is to help root out inefficiencies, root out roadblocks, and remove those from them. Or maybe it's just a belief system and they just need to talk through something in order to get back on track with their goals. Yeah, that's it.
Can you give us some examples, Adam, of some of the kind of data and performance metrics you're currently using to coach your team?
I spend most of my time on our overall scorecard. Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's what we are measuring. And we run on EOS, and so our corporate or our leadership L10. We're measuring our customer service is a huge component for us. So we're measuring our happiness score and how often people are giving us a thumbs up when we close out a conversation. Resolution time is how quickly are we replying to our customers. Our answer rate, so are we picking it up on the first or second phone call. Our Google reviews are definitely an indicator of how well we're doing. If we're creating customers who are having a delightful experience, they're going to be promoters of ours. And then we also track churn, is how often are we getting canned by customers, and why are they leaving us. And that's just on the customer service side. You want me to keep going, Danny?
Please, I'm 100% engaged.
Okay.
Yeah.
Office morale is a huge thing. So, we have a decent sized team of about 50 plus people now. And so that's me. Part of what I do is creating a culture. And we measure that through Company Pulse. So twice a month, people will fill out a short survey. It takes them 5 minutes and it says, how are you doing? How are you doing on your KPIs? How are you doing on your quarterly rocks? And if anything's off track, we engage with them. But then I have a true pulse on how my not my customers are feeling, because I don't deal with them all. I don't have the opportunity to work with them often. My customers are now my teammates, and I want to make sure that they're showing up, and then they're a 10 out of 10 every month. So I have a clear idea of how my office morale is doing. When they're showing up well, when they're in a good mood and they're 100%, they're able to give 100% to our customers. Company health, we're tracking churn, DLER, RPU, CAC, profits. Those are all profit coach metrics, and we have a fantastic dashboard for that. Our sales and BDM, it's just number of doors. So we are getting more granular. We're tracking leads, number of appointments set, a number of property management agreements that have been sent that week. But basically, it comes down to how many doors do we have? That's their single metric that we focus on. The leasing department, we are departmental. Properties on the market over 30 days, average vacancy dates. That comes back into what Craig had, or Danny had said earlier. We also track client relations and oops funds. So every time that we make a mistake, and that comes out of our pocketbook, maybe we painted the wrong house or something crazy like that. That comes out of my pocketbook, and we track that to see where we're making mistakes and where we have opportunities to get that. And our goal for that is less than 1% of gross revenue. Those are some of them.
That's
okay.
Great. No. I have a follow-up, Adam.
Okay.
And then we'll go to the other panelists. So, have you ever experienced sort of this a lack of alignment in terms of what the win-win looks like with your team? So for those who are listening today and they're like, hey, like this is what I believe success is, but my team isn't on board with that because it makes their life more difficult, or it's hard, or they don't think it's possible. Any thoughts or experiences on how you've helped close that gap and get everybody aligned on here, this is the framework of success, this is what creates measurable value, and this is what we're going to strive towards together?
Yes, oftentimes there is a disconnect from, say, corporate goals, our customers' goals, and the employees' goals. And in my mind, it can be, win-win-win, where we're all collectively rowing the same direction to achieve all of our goals and trying to expand the pie in some manner. A good example of this would be if a maintenance coordinator is not taking care of a customer and we end up getting canned, that hurts the company's goals. The client is no longer a promoter. In fact, they're probably leaving 1-star reviews if they don't show up well for that customer. So it hurts me as a business owner, and it hurts the customer because they're now detractors. But when they are showing up in a fantastic way and they're delivering a great experience, which is one of our core values, then that they're going to create a promoter. That customer is now going to become a promoter. They're going to stick around. The lifetime value of that customer starts to skyrocket. And then they go out and they leave a 5-star review, and that 5-star review now makes it easier for my BDM to go and close business. So running a departmental framework communication is so hard. That's where we constantly fail. But cross-departmental communication, just internal, is making sure that is really dialed in, because what the MC does affects my BDM. My BDM can also affect my MC's role. If my BDM is saying, oh yes, we're going to get you 15 quotes on paint touch-up, and the MC doesn't go out and do that, we end up losing that customer as well. And so everybody's super interconnected, and we have very outward mindset into how each person's individual's contributions can impact positively or negatively.
I love that. And just the way you painted that picture of the clarity with which people can see the connection between their role and the next person's role sitting next to them, super helpful. And even like just the simplicity of tying that back to, not that this is the be all and end all of measuring value, but it is important that 5-star review and how that, everybody contributes to that outcome and how that benefits everybody. And I know specifically, you guys reward on 5-star reviews in a significant way. We'll talk more about that later. Brad, how about for you? You got a team of people, you care about them. How are you engaging coaching conversations? What does that cadence look like? What is the substance and of those conversations? Is there any kind of framework or methodology you're working through as you bring the data in and ultimately help try to help this person improve in their performance?
Yeah, so I feel like as Adam was going through that list, there was a group of people that were probably thinking, holy crap, I don't know that I will ever get to a point where I will be able to have this level of detail of metrics and everything like that. And what Adam and his team have been able to accomplish with their EOS, with different things, with all of these different metrics is incredible and remarkable. But I think ultimately what we're looking at are what are the metrics that drive growth in your business, and what are the metrics that you can look at to say, okay, this is how I think our team is actually doing based on their role. So for us, we're right around 500 doors, and we have remote team members, we have team members here. And for us, the cadence of it, we have our weekly team meetings. But what I've noticed is I used to think about team connection as kind of this, oh man, we have to sit down and have this hour-long conversation, and I need to tell them something I love about them, and then get into the meat, and then tell them something I love again. And honestly, our cadence now is much more informal. So on average, I am checking in with team members on a weekly basis, but it's not a formal, like, let's sit down for an hour and do this. It is me dropping by or jumping on our chat or having a phone call if they're remote or whatever, and saying, where are we on this? What are your pain points right now? Where do you think we're messing up? And I can tell you, as I have focused more just on more regular connection, and I want to continue to focus on that more, we've seen more progress with that than kind of these big year-end or, those types of more, I guess, pressurized situations. And I know Kelli, I'm sure, could weigh in on that, but I just think just having a good open line of communication, and you asking a question and then zipping and saying, tell me where it hurts, or what am I not seeing from this situation that I should see, because I'm seeing it from this lens. What do I need to see from your point of view?
That's great. What is your kind of average frequency that you're targeting, Brad? I know these aren't pre-scheduled, but what's kind of the overall level of consistency you're looking for in terms of connecting with each team member, or having each team member be connected with by a manager?
So for us, we want to get to the point where it's weekly.
Mhm.
I would say right now where we are is closer to monthly.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so once again, that's where we are and where we want to be.
Yeah, it's great. Folks, just let's create a little conversation around that. Jump into chat. How often is each member of your team being coached with performance data? Let's get a little conversation going on around that. If you could just drop that into chat, share that with us. That'd be great. Kelli, your thoughts on coaching conversations, mechanics of that conversation, especially in a data-driven environment.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, tone is important. You will get a wide variety of responses from team members if you approach them with data and coaching. So setting proper expectations with your team and having the right tone set to where it is a collaborative conversation rather than a manager speaking to an employee kind of confrontation. Because what you don't want is you don't want a defensive response. You don't want somebody to close off and then not to make the progress that you want. And so setting the right team and making it more collaborative. I like to use data to tell a story and to be able to help highlight the patterns that we're seeing because of the data, but then explain the why and tie it back to how their contribution as a team member affects that data. I have a great example. We have a team that on a monthly basis provides metric reports to their maintenance technicians on how they are performing, how much windshield time they have, how much billable time they have, how they're affecting the speed of repair, how they're affecting some of the turnover repair speeds, and those types of metrics that you can find in the benchmark. But it's really helpful for them because it's been coached already and is continuously coached for them to understand how they can affect change and drive performance metrics on an individual level. And so when you're doing that one-on-one coaching, it's the tone that you set, it's helping them understand the why, and then it's really giving them those actionable next steps that help them to feel like they can then take that information and do something with it. If you don't have action at the end of a meeting, then what was the point? Those coaching calls should be to further development of those team members and to help them feel supported and valued and see how they fit into the bigger picture.
And I would just piggyback off of that. Thank you, Kelli. The ideal, I think, is where you can coach through questions to help people self-discover or self-articulate their own next steps. And to me, that is one of the cool things about a concrete framework like this. You can actually say, all right, like, hey, this is where you said you want to be on this metric. Based off of what you're seeing here, what are your thoughts on, where we're breaking down in the process? What are the next steps for you in terms of accomplishing that goal? And the ability to actually help people gain the muscle to be able to self-identify and solve based off of data, to me, that's the ultimate goal, where people are owning it to such a degree that they can look at the numbers themselves and say, shoot, this is where we're falling through. Here's how I can fix that.
Well, and that's individual performance, but that is also building up those team members to where they're infusing that that ability into themselves. So it's
Right.
professional development. You're then helping that team member to then become a manager and to become executive leadership and to be able to kind of progress in their role in your organization too.
Yeah.
Daniel.
Okay. Go ahead, please. Brad.
Sorry, I was just going to say there was a comment that came in that said, where do you pull this type of data? Where do you kind of get started on this? And I think if you're looking to get started on some of this, look at some of these metrics that you think, what are the top 5 or 10 that you think would move the needle the most for your company to track? And then start in your software. For example, maintenance response time, if you're using Meld or if you're using another system or whatnot, you can track a lot of those things through software. You can track turnover time through software if it's being entered in by the team members. But a lot of that, there's data that is within software that we all pay for that you can utilize. And you may not need to start with everything at the beginning. You don't have to come to this and say, I need 50 data points by the end of the week. Start with 1 or 2, whether that's, using Apply, Lead Simple. Oh, Kelli just put a bunch of these in here. But there's stuff that's already out there. Use the tools that you have, or investigate tools that could help with that so that it's not a manual thing, and go from there.
That's great. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. That's super helpful. Before we move on, just a couple of things that I wanted to add here on the coaching side of things. First of all, underscore one thing Kelli said, tone. And I think a part of tone is the way you're positioning data. And that is data the thing that you use to hold people accountable? Or is data the thing that you're empowering your team members with to hold themselves accountable? To me, that is a big, big difference. Like, I'm serving you by giving you clear definitions of success so that you can drive your own success. And that's a much different tone than, all right, time for your data spanking, And so ultimately that's a cultural thing of, you want to have like accountability. The way to think, I believe the way to think about accountability is like, this is something that people either engage in themselves or not. I think it's just difficult to ultimately hold people accountable that don't want to be accountable. And if they do want to be accountable, then empowering them to drive that accountability themselves, certainly providing a routine in which they can do that is great through one-on-one conversations, but accountability ultimately something that we need our teams to drive. The other thing I want to do is just share one of our coaching models that we use here at Profit Coach, and BAM stands for Become and Achieve More. That's kind of a summary of our mission. And we have a conversation model to facilitate BAM. And we've pulled this from a number of different sources. One of them is what Adam mentioned, the coaching habit. Put that link for Amazon in the chat. And that's a really, really, really outstanding book on coaching, super practical, super actionable. But we have a kind of a 5-question framework. It's not like we walk through this formally all the time, but we pick and pull from this framework. Sometimes we do use all the questions in a given conversation, but this can be really helpful to facilitate a self-discovery and ownership-based conversation using data. And I think you'll see how data ties into this. So there's these 5 questions are broken into 3 areas: problem, context, and solution. And the first question is, what is the real challenge here for you? And oftentimes, as we look at problem, you're gonna get surface answers. Well, so and so is just a really difficult owner, right? So okay, I get that. But as we look at this number across the board, we're seeing this, and I wanna help you knock this out of the park. So to that end, like what is the real challenge here for you? And using this question to dig deep, get to the essence, whether that's a process challenge or a system challenge or a desire challenge or an understanding challenge, this is a phenomenal place to start. Next is context. And you look at this question, what is your contribution to the current challenge? You might phrase that differently. Some of you are like, I can't imagine asking my team and not like having them feel super defensive about that. But, at Profit Coach, like people know this is coming and this is part of an ownership culture. Like, hey, what, based on the challenge, like what are you doing that's contributing to this right now? And this can help some thoughtful reflection and people taking ownership in that consideration. And then solution, what do you want? What is your ideal outcome here? And you've seen the PM operation standards, you've seen what's possible, you've seen what people are doing, but what is your goal? What do you think success would look like for your department in this area? And what would that mean to you if you were able to accomplish that? What would that mean to the owners? What would that mean to the team? Fourthly, what would have to be true to achieve this? And this is where it's a great question to do what we were talking about earlier, and that is helping people self-identify the solutions, the action steps to implement. And then how would you know if you achieved it? What are the measurable outcomes? This brings us right back into a data validated, data confirmed solution. So hopefully that's helpful to you. And then in terms of other feedback, I had one other slide here. Here it is. This is a one-on-one framework that has a strong data component. This is something that our business coach, Rob Simons, put together. And if you were looking for like, hey, how do I have one-on-one conversations in a way that integrates data, you might do that in a way that is informal and sort of unscheduled. That's totally fair. If you're looking for more of like a predefined routine for these calls that you certainly can vary from and make flexible, check this out over at simons.coach/lead. I just put that in chat. Okay. Hopefully those are a few resources that help you guys. And last thing we want to talk about, or last 2 things we want to talk about as we start to wrap up here, mechanics of measuring and tracking performance. Brad, you gave some great practical suggestions there. Kelli, Adam, anything that you guys would add to that in terms of tools that you're using, how to not get too sort of overwhelmed with this, but start taking meaningful steps towards tracking these things?
Brad?
Brad kind of gave his speech. Brad, if you have more to add, Adam?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I gave a little spiel. Yeah, go ahead.
A couple of things. As you are dialing in these metrics, and they might be very clear to you, it might feel new or different to that teammate who is now owning that outcome. And if you force place any KPI or ROC or initiative, or you have to do this, doesn't work as well. So we usually will say, here's the data, here's where we have areas of opportunity, and what do you think you could do to impact that? And if that's a baby step into, they might choose the wrong quarterly ROC, but they think it might tie back to solving churn or getting more reviews or whatever. But that's just a conversation. But when you empower them to pick it, they have a lot more ownership of it. And so don't think it's just me that has to do all of the answers and give you the playbook for how you can contribute to the solution. It's more like, here's our problem. How can we collaborate to get something? what could I do, or what do you, hopefully they're saying, here's how I can help contribute and help solve this issue for the company. And then they own it for the quarter. It might be off course a little bit track, but it's baby steps. You guys got to keep in mind that you guys have a lot more experience than they do. And this might be their first opportunity working in property management. And this is all very new, and they're probably pretty naive about it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I would also say if this is all new to your team, whether you're a team of 1 or a team of 200, start with an all hands meeting and talk about it. Talk about how we're going to be using data. Talk about why we're going to be using data. Introduce the PM Ops standards and this really cool, exciting thing in the industry and how it's going to impact technology and everything else that we do. Get people excited about it. Make it fun. But set that framework so that you're not just starting with this rigid, here are some numbers and this is how it's going to impact your day to day. Make sure it's collaborative. If you're not using any tools that you can track with, start with your property management software. Start with what numbers you can find on those dashboards and those reports. Pull custom reports, create custom reports to be able to tie those numbers back to these standards and be able to start, even if it's 1 or 2 things that you start with tracking. Start small. It doesn't have to be all at once. That's overwhelming for your team. Maybe each department gets 1 metric that they start with and they can own and they can determine what they think, if you have a manager in that department, they can determine what that number is that they're going to own that month or that week, or this quarter, and try it out. If it doesn't work out perfectly right away, keep trying. This is a game changer for your business and is the only way that you will make meaningful changes in your business in the long term and be able to scale to the goals that you have for your organization. So keep trying, visualize the data, keep it at the forefront, introduce it at every meeting, and create a feedback loop. Have that open collaboration to where your team members can say, hey, this is working for me. Hey, can we try it this way? Hey, this isn't working. Hey, I have an issue or I don't understand. If you create that culture of feedback and allow those conversations, you're going to be able to make this infuse into that culture of what you're trying to do.
Great feedback. Just a couple of things to add to the mechanics of measuring and tracking performance. Back to this worksheet, sit down with your team, pick some metrics, and then I think just a simple spreadsheet in an EOS scorecard model could be really useful here, where you've got maybe 5 or 10 metrics that you're working on. Start with the softwares, as they said, but you may need to use some self-reported data, like have each individual team member say, you own this number and you're responsible to populate this week. Obviously, there's integrity concerns there, but hopefully you have high integrity team members. If you say, this is the report to pull, bring this number to the meeting every week, you might need to crowdsource some of the tracking and population of this. Profit Coach is in development on a solution to fix this difficult situation where it is difficult to get this level of operational data. So here's a view of our dashboard that's in development right now, and something we're looking to release in early 2025, where you basically have all of these metrics that are in the PM operations standards ready at a click. And the goal with this is to, and whether or not you use this platform or another platform, hopefully this illustrates how this conversation can go. What you really want is a way to take a number and move it to action. And so what that looks like for us is, okay, if we have an issue with turnover speed, and turnover speed is 5% over our target. The way this works is you double click on the 15, it takes you to a map where you can see what your target is for each step in the process, each of those milestones that you saw in the PM operations standards, what your actual is for each step, and the current number of outstanding processes that are over that target on that specific milestone. And then if you click on any one of those numbers on the far right, it takes you to the actual process list. Here are the processes that need to be resolved by the end of the day in order to get this metric back on track. So I'm happy to talk more about that with anybody that might be interested, but this is the kind of reporting that we think will ultimately help people move from a number to action and improve performance. Okay, we've covered a lot. What's next? What's the next best step? You got to get your hands on the PM operations standards. And we're going to talk as we wrap up here in just a minute about how to incentivize and reward performance. If you guys have just a couple minutes to stay a little bit long on that. But we want to invite you to schedule a property management operations standards implementation call with our team to learn how to get the most out of the PMOS with 3 steps: implement the operation standards in your processes, measure and track these key metrics, and then ultimately optimize your processes and improve your team performance. So that involves a framework like this. And if that would be helpful to chat with our team on some ways that you can get these implemented in your own business, you can just go ahead and jump into the poll that I'm going to throw up and get a little bit of some advice from our team on how to implement the PM operations standards in your business. Okay, as we wrap up here, I want to just talk lastly about rewarding performance. Adam, how are you guys? I know you've put a lot of effort into this. What are some things that you're doing over at Nestwell for rewarding performance, and what's working for you guys in 2024?
Yes. As our team has grown, we had a blaring issue of some inequality issues, compensation models, career paths, pay scales, pay bands, and all of the stuff that comes with, a company that's starting to grow, and just finding some consistency around it. And so what we have done is we've read quite a few books on compensation models and things of that nature. Happy to share that with anyone. But we have now shifted to a individual contributor or maker type role. And then we have a leadership track as well. What we have observed is that the Peter Principle is very applicable for us. And so we had created tracks for individual contributors or makers, and we can say, hey, if you want to make more, if you do all of these things well, you are a maker level 2. If you want or desire to make more money, have upward trajectory, here is some opportunities and things that you can do within your role to then graduate. I am happy to share my screen. I might be giving away some. Here we go. But on a maker level, those guys do not have the same amount of levers that, say, me can pull massive levers. And so their compensation model is that they receive an hourly wage, or maybe it's a salary, and then based off of their deliverables, their KPIs, their peer review, their quarterly rocks, they can receive a percentage of their income, their annual salary on a quarterly basis. Let's see if I can share this. Hopefully I'm not sharing anything too private, but oh well. There we go. We'll start here. So we have a maker track, and people can receive a percentage of their annualized salary on a quarterly basis. And we have pay bands now. So an M1 can make anywhere from 10 to 14,000. An M2 can make 13 to 17,000. This helps them when we're going to hire people. Hey, this is their job description. It sounds like it's an M4. So this is what we can afford to pay an M4. But they can obviously make quite a bit of money, arguably just as much as someone who's on a leadership track. They can make a lot of money to where they don't feel forced to go in and be a manager, because managing and leading other people is a whole entire different skill set. And we realize that that's not what everyone wants to, but most companies default to this hierarchy. And so they can receive a percentage of their bonus. Here's what our titles and positions look like. Again, I'm happy to share this. So many industry experts have given me so much. I feel indebted to share with them. So this is in each department: maintenance, operations, leasing. We have M1s, M2s, M3s, and this is their function or what they're responsible for, as well as leaders. If you go on the leadership track, you're kind of a player coach, and then you're a coach and a captain. And we have internal job titles that kind of spell out who they are, what they do. but what they're responsible for as well. And we highlight what their main thing is. So someone who's on the L track used to be just a individual contributor or a maker. Now they're now working side by side, maybe not doing the same amount of workload as they were, because now they're conducting one-on-ones, they're doing quarterly reviews, and coaching and counseling and whatnot. So we do that. What the ultimate goal is depending on where you fall. If you're an M1, we're going to start here, an M1, so you're representative, like a CSR entry level type person, you can earn 2.5% of your annualized salary as bonus. And so if they were to make 34,000 a year, their max bonus would be this. But then we weight it, and it's depending on, let me switch back here. The formula that we bonus people is 50% of their KPIs. So those are their KPIs annually. Did you hit all of your KPIs? Well, that bonus here is predicated 50% of this comes off of your KPIs. The next thing would be 25% peer review. That's your colleagues as well as your direct report or whoever your boss is. They are weighting and scoring you every single month. And then 25% of it is quarterly rocks. We have ambitious goals to grow. And so everyone is given a quarterly rock. And if they nail all of those things, then they receive their full bonus. And that's to incentivize or align people with who own the outcome, who are willing to pick up quarterly rocks and volunteer, like Brad had mentioned earlier, and saying, I got those, say, great, you now own them and you can make more money as we make more money. And so it's tying everyone back to the corporate goals as well, which has some growth goals. How'd I do? Questions?
That was fast. That was awesome. That was powerful.
Yes.
Thank you. Kelli, Brad, as we wrap up here, any thing you would add there on best practices you've learned in terms of rewarding performance with compensation or bonuses?
So a couple things that I think that you need to have the compensation based on their role. And profitability is a big deal for the company as a whole. It's a big deal for the CEO, for the owner. But it means if profitability is the only thing that your team gets incentivized on, then the less they control, the less they feel incentivized to do it. And so Adam's structure really does incentivize people based on their role. But here's something that I learned this year is as I met with team members and said, what is it that you want? I had 7 team members say they wanted a professional designation. And so we paid for a private offering for 7 of our team members to get a designation. And it was probably about a $4,500 investment for us. But that was what they wanted, And one of our team members last night just said, I want to go to Europe for 8 days next year. How can I work towards that? And we have a plan for them to go to Europe. So if you're not sure and you don't have a full structure or anything, like money obviously plays into it, ask them what they would like and then see if there's a path forward. Like that's just where you start. Ask them and then listen and say, hey, based on your role, I don't know that 10 days in Europe is going to be possible for you, but this is where we could go with this, and this is how you could get to here.
Love it. Great. Super actionable. Kelli, wrap us up.
I love that idea. I think making sure that you are listening to your team members and making sure that you're aligning with their personality type of what they want. Some people, it's not an incentive. Sometimes it's recognition. Sometimes it's words of affirmation. Sometimes, there's different incentives for each individual team member. And so I love the idea of keeping it on more of a individual basis. I would also just add that there's a lot of opportunities to publicly celebrate people. And sometimes it is as easy as doing a spotlight of each team member or celebrating somebody when they reach a certain milestone within your organization. Having internal rewards or award ceremonies on an annual basis to recognize the achievements that someone has over a quarter or over an annual period. We always think monetary, but there are so many ways that you can show appreciation and so many ways that you can really make people feel valued and invested in as an employee. having even just a performance track of career development, where they're going to go, what is their next progression, what is their next opportunity, how can they be enriched as a person on your team and be valued as a person on your team. A lot to think about and a lot to potentially add to your business in 2025.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up there. Really appreciate your feedback. Up next, Wednesday, January 22 at 12 p.m. CST, episode 1 of the 2025 Profit Power Hour. And again, thank you to our outstanding panelists today. Really appreciate you guys jumping in here, sharing your expertise. Brad, Adam, Kelly, and all of you. Thanks for all you do every day in the world of property management to make the lives of your team, your residents, and your owners even better. Have a wonderful holiday. Have a happy new year, and we will see you in January. Take care, everybody.